this computer. Fab. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to take you through all this info today. This is honestly like one of my favorite things to do. Today we're talking about the sexy science of how to get pregnant. I'm not going to lie to you, this was a ChatGPT name because it was called How to Get Pregnant before. And I was like, how can I zhuzh it up? And I wish I hadn't, but anyway, we're here, so it's fine. So today. Da, 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 da. Sorry, there's people still entering. I've got lots of things happening on my screen. There we go. So, what I'm going to break down for you today is how to use your menstrual cycle as a way of understanding your unique fertile window, because trust me, it is unique to you, and how to use your menstrual cycle as a diagnostic tool to understand what is happening with your fertility issues. Because trust me, there are so much information in there that you could easily be missing or just not quite know what to look for, and it will give you huge insights to what's happening with your fertility. So I'd love to be able to say, do this workshop and you will get pregnant. But anyone that promises you that you will get pregnant off of doing their workshop, course, whatever, run a mile, because that's just sadly not how these things work. But if the couples that do have a fertility awareness education do tend to conceive more quickly, and it really helps to let people feel like they're in control of their circumstances, which I know that when you're trying to conceive, often it can feel a bit like, what's happening? And yeah, being able to take back a bit of that ownership there. So we're really going to try and take away some of that stress and like help it to feel easy, and just let all that kind of angst melt away, because you're going to feel really informed about what's happening with your cycle. So if you're ready to walk away feeling like this, I would love you to drop a yeah or an emoji, something in the chat, so we're all like, here, we're engaged, we're ready to learn loads about mucus, because let's face it, that's what I'm obsessed with. So great. So this masterclass is for you if, yes, I'm seeing everything coming through in the chat. Lovely. So if you've been relying on apps or ovulation tests to tell you when you're fertile, so you're using an app and every month it's like it says you're fertile, but you're not getting a positive pregnancy test, and you're peeing in a cup, dipping the stick in, and you're just like, what's like, am I even ovulating? Like, is that a faint line on the LH strip? Like, I can't tell. Like, we're gonna make sure that you don't need to do that anymore. If you've tried using fertility awareness before, but you didn't get it, and you're a bit like, oh, I kind of understand the theory, but like, how do I actually apply this when I have my own chart in front of me? Because I'm sure some of you have had that moment of looking at a chart and being like, okay, cool, but what does it actually mean? So we're going to get into all of that. And if you've had period problems all your life and you feel like trying to conceive, trying to get pregnant is just another hurdle to overcome. So whether that's pain, PMS, PCOS, endometriosis, like unusual bleeding, these things have really ruled your life and you feel like you've just been in and out of the doctors to no avail, then you're in the right place. So what we're going to cover is going to work perfectly for anyone who's newly trying to conceive, those of you who've been trying for a while, anyone struggling with secondary infertility, those diagnosed with chronic period problems or conditions, and those preparing for IVF. And there's a little asterisk there. So if you're currently watching this and you're in the thick of IVF, then I would say do watch the information and it's here for when you need it, but don't bother tracking your cycle whilst you are on all the medication, because it will look very different to the kind of rules and observations that I will be showing you here today. So today's game plan, it's Cycle 101, understanding the fundamentals of what is happening in your menstrual cycle. This might be familiar to some of you, but it's really important to understand this before we start looking at the cycle through the lens of fertility awareness. Then we're going to start demystifying mucus, so really getting clarity on when your unique fertile window is. Then we're going to talk about BBT, so making sense of temperature tracking. Then I'm going to show you ways to track your cervical position, because this does change with your fertile window. And then like an SOS of how to use your cycle as a diagnostic tool. So this is the bit where fertility awareness gets really interesting. If we've got the charts and it's like, okay, cool, what can we do now to actually help you achieve a pregnancy? So Because ultimately, I just don't want you to feel like you're losing months and months of your life, like waiting to find out if you're pregnant, because that bit's really shit. And I want you to have a life alongside trying to get pregnant. And for so many people, this is a really empowering experience to understand when they're fertile, when they can confidently close that fertile window, and to be able to observe their menstrual cycle in a way that makes them go, oh, okay, like actually everything is looking good. Or, okay, this is looking a bit wonky, for want of a better word. And what can we do to change that and really support your fertility? So, for all of you who are here live, and when you stay until the end, I'm going to give you a copy of three of my top resources. So, you'll get a template for writing to your GP to request blood tests. So, these are hormonal blood tests, which will help to give you insights to what's happening and when to get them done, making sure you're getting them done at the right days of your cycle. Foods that support mucus production, because of course, that's a real thing we're going to be chatting about here. And some people struggle to see mucus, and sometimes that is because you're physically not producing it. So that's where this handout's going to come in. But this workshop is going to be good because what it is going to show you is maybe why you're not seeing mucus. And then we've got the low progesterone, supporting low progesterone handout. Some of you have already got this because you came to this webinar off the back of receiving this, but it's a really valuable resource that if you haven't got it, you'll get this if you stay until the very end of the session. So okay, so my goal for all of you today is for you to feel really confident in observing your mucus to know when you're actually fertile without relying on tech or strips. It can so easily get really expensive to buy like a device that's going to measure your hormones and things, and you actually just walk away being like, I'm more stressed after buying this. So you're going to feel really confident to just trust your body. You're going to understand how to use basal body temperature to confirm that you have ovulated. And then you can recognize the signs your body is giving you when it comes to having a healthy cycle and getting pregnant, plus what to do if things aren't on track. So if you don't know me, I suspect most of you do, but I know some people have come off the back of people sharing the workshop today. I'm Katie. I'm the founder of Reflex East, and I'm a reproductive reflexologist, but I'm also a fertility awareness mentor and hormone health coach. And the fertility awareness side of things is really where we're diving into today. I also co-host the podcast Don't Tell Me to Relax with Hannah Pern, which excitingly was featured in Stylist Magazine's top 6 podcasts for people who are trying to get have a baby. So, how can I help you apart from going through all the info today? I really have helped hundreds of people through trying to conceive now, which is a really nice place to be in. And now sometimes helping people to have like extend their family further, empowering women to understand their cycles on a really intimate level with fertility awareness. And we're about to go into the 5th round of Conceive, which is my group fertility awareness program, which is ready to launch. And I will tell you a bit about that at the end. Being there to listen when things didn't work out, because sometimes it can take a while to start your family. And then soothing nervous systems with reflexology, or foot fondling, as I tend to refer to it. And then creating really practical plans for clients of how to move forward based on what their cycle is telling us, whether that is implementing certain lifestyle protocols or referring them to the correct clinics, testing options in order for them to get the help that they really, really need. And hopefully to make you laugh as well when it can be a bit grim. So I really want to be like your cheerleader on the way through this journey. So when I started fertility awareness, I knew the theory. I'd read a book about it. I was listening to some podcasts, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool, I get it. And then I got a thermometer and started looking at a chart and was like, what is happening? I did not understand at all. And I was like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. So this was when I was tracking at first. I had all the ideas of kind of like what I was meant to be doing, but I didn't really know what it meant. So I felt really confused. I felt really intimidated by it, and like it wasn't for me. And because I had read a book and was listening to a podcast about it, that because when my chart was presented in front of me that I didn't get it, it made me feel really stupid. And I think feeling stupid is one of like the most horrible feelings. And I really want to make sure that anyone works with me. And today, if you have questions, do ask them. Because I don't want anyone to feel stupid, because I think it's just like the worst feeling. And there's already enough shame around like menstrual cycles, fertility, and things. So like ask all the questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I really, really, really do mean that, because I don't want anyone to walk away being like, I don't know what's happening. But then when someone did break it down, I was like, oh, okay, like I get it. I see what's happening. I can follow the patterns. I've got rules to apply, and it just all really clicked into place. So this was my very first fertility awareness chart. This was actually at the very start of my mentorship. So even though I was starting to like properly learn with a mentor, I was still quite intimidated by it based on my experiences. So I wasn't really committing to it because I was feeling like I wasn't understanding it at first. And then with that, I was inconsistent. So it made it harder to make sense of the information. But we still did get some info from this, that I had a really short luteal phase, which is probably why my PMS was so horrific. And then once I was like, okay, no, I'm going in, I'm going to really commit to this. I'm going to use all the observations and get really clear on what's happening with my cycle. Then you get this, where there's detailed and standardized observations. So this is the process I take all my clients through. So by the time they get to the end of, well, even within the first couple of weeks of fertility awareness, you'll understand exactly what this means. You'll know when you're fertile. I was tracking symptoms that were important to me based on what I was experiencing, the things I wanted to improve. And then because I was tracking all of this, I was able to use it as a diagnostic tool to help me move towards a pretty much symptom-free cycle, which was a huge, like, incomparable. Like I have obsessive compulsive disorder, which was exacerbated by my menstrual cycle, where I would break up with my partner every single month. And I don't do that anymore, which is really great. So, the key ingredient here, though, is to really know your unique menstrual cycle. And that is like what we're going to get into today. So showing you how to understand why your cycle is the way it is. I will come to that later. So, are you ready? We're going to really get into it now. So, if you haven't got a notebook, maybe grab one, grab a pen, and let me know in the chat that you're like, okay, yeah, I'm keen. I'm in. I'm invested. I want to learn about mucus because it's my favorite thing. And yeah, let's go. So, Cycle 101, understanding the fundamentals of your menstrual cycle. So, where does it all begin? So, really, it doesn't start in your reproductive system. Well, it's kind of a feedback loop happening, but it really starts up in the brain. So, we've got the pituitary gland, which is sometimes referred to as the master gland. And there's these feedback loops happening and like kickstarting, where the pituitary is detecting certain hormones. And then in response to that, the ovaries start to work. So, probably seen this image 1,000 times, but this is your reproductive system. So we've got the uterus here, the ovaries here. I'm going to talk you through the life cycle of a follicle shortly. Then the cervix is here at the top of the vagina, which is the internal organ. The vulva is the external genitalia. So vulva, vagina, two different things. And then we've got the fallopian tubes, which the egg will travel down. Fertilization happens in the fallopian tube, and then implantation happens in the uterus. Fun fact, if you didn't know it already, your fallopian tubes and ovaries don't really sit like this. The ovaries actually sit kind of behind the uterus, and then the fallopian tubes are free to move. So the fallopian tubes aren't attached to the ovaries. They stay in place because of this ligament here, but the fallopian tubes are free to move. So if you have an issue with one fallopian tube, then if it has to be removed for whatever reason, if it's blocked, the other fallopian tube could still pick up an ovulated egg from the opposite ovary, which is really fun. So these are your hormones happening throughout the menstrual cycle. So at the start, you've got your period. Your hormones are going to be pretty low here, not a lot happening. But FSH starts to kick in, which is follicle stimulating hormone, which does what it says on the tin. It stimulates the follicles on the ovaries. Then estrogen starts to be created by the follicles. So the pituitary kicks out the follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone tells the ovaries to start really stimulating follicles, and then the follicles start to produce estrogen. And then once estrogen gets to a certain peak, then luteinizing hormone is released, which is what then triggers ovulation to happen. So you can see there's a real kind of like domino effect happening with each of these. We need one thing to get to a certain threshold, the next thing to happen, for the next thing to happen, for the next thing to happen. And then once you've ovulated, progesterone kicks in and is the dominant hormone for the remainder of the menstrual cycle. So the follicular phase. So yeah, this is, I always think follicular first, nice bit of alliteration to help you remember. So this is the first half of the cycle where estrogen is that dominant hormone. So as I said, estrogen causes that LH surge to happen, and usually ovulation will happen within a 24 to 36 hour window of you seeing this LH peak. Now, excuse me, the follicular phase is variable in length. So what that means is if your period suddenly seems really randomly late and you're not pregnant, it's likely that you have just ovulated later and this part of your cycle was longer. So that's really can like be why your cycles might vary in length at times. And then also estrogen is what really causes all the changes in the cervical mucus and like what causes us to see that real clear, stretchy, lubricative stuff. Then the luteal phase. So this is the second half of the cycle from ovulation until your next period would start. So progesterone is the dominant hormone here, and it's our like progestation hormone. So it really is the hormone that is essential when it comes to getting pregnant or staying pregnant and that early stage of pregnancy. In optimal cycles, the luteal phase should be about 12 to 14 days in length. And there's signs of low progesterone, which you would notice through a short luteal phase, spotting, mucus before your period, or PMS symptoms and things as well. So just to kind of explain to you what is happening, the follicles have the eggs inside of them. So follicle stimulating hormone is telling those to start to develop and mature into an egg that will eventually be ovulated. So you can see them starting to grow and develop here. And then this is what we call a dominant follicle. So this little red bit inside it, that is the egg that will then be ovulated. So then the egg bursts out of the follicle, and what's left behind of the follicle turns into a temporary gland called the corpus luteum, which is what creates progesterone. So when we talk about egg quality, it's not just about what's happening with the egg that's ovulated. We want to make sure what's left behind is robust enough to actually start producing enough progesterone for the remainder of the menstrual cycle. So egg quality isn't just about eggs, but it is also about progesterone and what's happening with that part of the cycle too. So looking at the cycle with fertility awareness, yes, I did do the ChatGPT, make yourself an action figure, and I was obsessed with this. So it went in. So what is fertility awareness? So it's understanding and having the ability to read and interpret your body's fertile signs. So what are your fertile signs? You have cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and cervical position. So cervical position is an optional sign. It's not one that is like compulsory as such when I'm teaching fertility awareness, but it can be really helpful in cases where cervical mucus or basal body temperature are a bit off for a variety of reasons. So research shows us that couples who track their fertility using methods such as basal body temperature charts, cervical mucus observations, or ovulation predictor kits have higher chances of conceiving within a shorter time frame compared to those who do not track these indicators. So I think that's a pretty cool reason to track, let alone all the insights you can gain about your overall health as well. So fertility awareness and the fertile window. So these are kind of telling you what's happening when. So cervical mucus tells you when you're fertile, whereas basal body temperature confirms that ovulation happened. We do something called cross-checking, which is to confirm ovulation happened and can close the fertile window by looking at cervical mucus and basal body temperature against each other, comparing the two. This has allowed us to identify potential ovulation, predict a period, and see potential pregnancy as well. Fertility awareness can be used as a method of birth control, which I appreciate may not be the reasons why a lot of you are here today. But when we do that, we apply additional buffers either side of the fertile window in order to allow for the maximum efficacy. So really important to remember, the mucus and basal body temperature are giving you two different pieces of information. I think often they can get talked about together, or people are using basal body temperature as a way of kind of thinking they're going to know when they're ovulating, but that's not really how it works. So I always think of mucus as like your crystal ball and like looking into the future and being like, cool, ovulation is on the way. Whereas basal body temperature is looking back at the cycle and being able to tick in a box, yes, ovulation has in fact happened. So yeah, one is kind of looking forward and the other one is looking back. So you get two different pieces of information from them. So with basal body temperature, just as like a just to make it really clear, basically, you can't predict ovulation based on what your temperature is doing. If you see it dip one day, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to ovulate the next day. So this is why we have certain rules that we apply that will help you to confirm ovulation really confidently, but also know how to look for other things that will help to tell you when you're in the fertile window. So we're going to demystify mucus now. So getting clarity on when your fertile window is. So cervical mucus is created in response. Always spot the typo once I'm in the presentation. Great. So it's created in response to rising levels of estrogen. In terms of the amount you would expect to see each day, it's like a quarter to maximum a teaspoon per day. Appreciate that's a pretty odd measurement for when you're looking at what's coming out of your vagina, not necessarily sitting there with a teaspoon, but just to give you a reference of like, it's not necessarily loads you're expecting to see. I have definitely been guilty in the past of cracking an egg and doing a video on Instagram like, whoo, cervical mucus, and it's a whole egg white. Realistically, you're not going to see that in a day. But what I really want you to know is it's a sign of health. Because we create mucus in response to estrogen levels, if your estrogen levels are really low, you might not be seeing mucus, and that could be why. So then we want to be thinking about why are your estrogen levels low? And then we can go through the chart, see if there's any other indicators in charting as to why that is, but also thinking about your lifestyle and what you can do to support that as well. It also really helps to regulate the acidity of the vagina. So what you would kind of expect to see as a typical pattern of mucus throughout a menstrual cycle would be to have your period. Then you'll likely have some dry days where when you're checking, you're not seeing anything that you could pick up and test between your fingers. And then you're going to have some mucus days, which are optimal for conception. And then once ovulation's happened, back to dry days. When you are in these mucus days here, the vagina becomes a far more alkaline environment, which is similar and matches to the pH balance of seminal fluid. So your body is literally doing everything it can. It's like it's doing the most to make sure a pregnancy is far more likely. Whereas on these dry days, your vagina is really acidic, which is an environment that sperm hate. I always think of it as like when you're in those infertile parts of the cycle and the vagina is the acidic environment of the sperm touching it and like frying, like, ah! So that's what goes on in my brain. But it really is kind of showing you that like sperm won't survive when your vagina is acidic and not with the presence of cervical mucus there. So E-type mucus is made under the influence of estrogen, so estrogenic mucus, if we're in the States. So that's why it's E-type. And both peak and non-peak, which I'm going to tell you what they are in a moment, are created under the influence of estrogen. This E-type mucus will nourish sperm, filter out defective sperm, so it literally like locks onto the top of the sperm that aren't the best quality and like stops them getting to the fallopian tube, and allows for really easy transportation up to the fallopian tube. So it's like I say, doing the most to like help them on their way. I thought I had another slide there, but when you're in the dry parts of your cycle, particularly after ovulation, then you get a mucus plug forming in the vagina, and then that's when the sperm, they literally can't get through, it's acidic, and it's like doing everything to like your body won't be able to conceive then. So checking for cervical mucus. This is a nice diagram of a vulva from the Justice user guide. And the way we check is with toilet paper. So you just get a bit of toilet paper and you're going to wipe from front to back. In the Conceive course, there is now a whole video on how to wipe, because believe it or not, it always comes up as a conversation of, are you going from the front? Are you going from the back? There's a whole video on how to do it. But ultimately, you want to make sure you're going from front to back, so from the vulva across the perineum and towards the anus. And that way you're going to be making sure that you're picking up any mucus that is there, and then you're able to, I'm talking too fast, sorry. You're able to wipe and then see what's on the toilet paper. There we go, got there in the end. So when we're checking for cervical mucus, you want to check every time you go to the toilet. And you also want to check before and after you pee or poo, before you do your business, because this is where people end up suddenly being like, oh, I'm seeing mucus that I wasn't seeing before, because you want it to be a habit, basically, where you're checking every time your pants are down, you're going to wipe, you're going to look, you're going to check. And that's just going to really help you to make sure you are maximizing the amount that you're looking. And then that way it becomes really, really clear. Is there a hormonal issue here? Are there underlying things indicating that maybe there's something going on with the vaginal microbiome? And being able to understand, is it just I've not been looking enough, or is there a genuine issue here? And that really helps to create the clarity there. Also, the checking before you pee, because there's some cervical mucus observations once you get into like the deep charting inside Conceive, where you can detect cervical health issues really early on, but you need to make sure you're wiping before you've peed, because those observations can easily be confused for urine if you're only looking after. Also, if you're checking before, then you're going to see anything that's kind of ready to come out. And then if you're checking after you've peed, you've used your pelvic muscles to get the urine out. And sometimes that can mean there's mucus coming out after as well. So that way you're really just making sure you're maximizing your chances of seeing it. And then you want to make a note of your observations in order to keep track of it, because trust me, you won't remember what you saw 3 days ago. So you want to make sure that you're noting it into a chart. Clients are always like, oh, why are you asking me this? And I'm like, so what does that observation mean from like 2 weeks ago? And it's like, so that's why we have a standardized way of doing it. Just saw a question come through, so I'm just going to check that real quick. With cervical mucus, when you check, I often can't tell if there's something there. I feel like it gets absorbed on the paper. So even if I do see something, I can't tell what the consistency is because it's absorbed by the paper. I can never pick it up, for example. Okay, cool. So the main thing I would say to you is assess the sensation. So how does it feel when you wipe? Is there a lubricative sensation? Is it like the slip and slide where you're like, and you're like at the back before you've even realized what's happening? Because then that's the really big key indicator that you're in the fertile window. So something that I teach, how to differentiate between when there's mucus that you can't see, but the sensation is like a really important part of the teaching. Sometimes I only see mucus once or twice through the day, and the other times it's dry. Is that normal? Yeah, that can be completely normal. So you can expect to see like a quarter to a teaspoon of mucus throughout the day. That might be that you see a lot of it like 1 or 2 times, and then you don't notice it for the rest of the day. But ultimately, like if you're seeing it if you see it in the morning, then you don't see it all day, and then you see it in the night, like you will consider that to be a fertile day. So peak and non-peak mucus are both fertile. The names are annoying because non-peak would suggest it's not fertile, but ultimately, if you see mucus that looks either like the lotion in the back or the clear stretchy stuff in the front, fertile mucus. Do not wait to just see this stuff, because you could be missing like prime days to be trying to conceive. So non-peak is this cloudy white lotion, kind of sticky stuff. You should be able to pick up and test it, but it might not stretch as much as the clear lubricative stuff. This is fertile mucus that I think so many people are waiting to see the peak mucus, the clear, stretchy, slippery, slip and slide. Now, peak mucus is optimal for conception, but that is just because you're going to create the peak mucus when estrogen levels are higher. So it's likely you're closer to ovulation. But some people will only see non-peak mucus. Some people might see some non-peak, then peak mucus. But ultimately, if you're seeing anything that when you wipe, one, if there's a lubricative sensation or something that you can pick up, then they are fertile days and you want to be using those for trying to conceive. So in terms of confirming ovulation with mucus, this is part of the cross-checking method. So peak day is the last day you see peak mucus, not the day you see the most of it. So you're not going to know it's peak day on the day. You won't know until like the following day, basically. So let's say today I see peak mucus and then tomorrow I'm dry, there's nothing there. Then the peak day is highly correlated with ovulation. So ovulation occurs on peak day +1. So we've got this count of 3 here. So peak +1, like 80% of the time, that's when ovulation is going to happen. So that's why I'm always asking clients like, okay, are you seeing mucus? When did the mucus stop? Because when the mucus stopped is a really interesting point of like when ovulation likely will have happened. So seeing these mucus days, these are your optimal times to try and conceive. But in terms of if you're trying to pinpoint ovulation, thinking about when the mucus stops. If ovulation doesn't happen on peak day or peak +1, it will highly likely happen within the 3-day window, which is why we do something called peak +3. And we should be able to confirm ovulation using BVT as well. So that helps to kind of point it down a bit. I think I saw a question. We often see mucus a couple of times a day and then it's dry and then get mucus again for 1 or 2 days. Is that normal? Yeah, it definitely can be normal. So you can see mucus for anything up from like 2 to 7 days. Some people will have mucus for a bit and then it like goes away, then it comes back. If you've got a really kind of a longer irregular cycle, then you might have kind of phases of mucus where you have a bit of mucus, then it stops, then a bit more mucus, then it stops, then more mucus, then it stops. That's where using BVT is incredibly helpful to confirm ovulation. So then that will help to give you kind of clarity by using BVT as well. Sometimes see mucus after ovulation for a couple of days, staying pretty confident 3 days CPO and still getting clarity sticky mucus. Never too much information. I have people sending me pictures of their mucus inside my like courses and stuff. So like it's all good. Is that normal and should it stop after ovulation? In an ideal world, it would dry up. It would dry up after ovulation. Some people will have a continuous mucus pattern where they do see a bit of kind of mucus throughout, but generally you want it to dry up. And if you're kind of having a bit of mucus after ovulation and then as your period starts, that can be an indication that maybe there is a progesterone issue. So that's when we really want to get into brain. Supporting progesterone, looking at the tracking, seeing what's happening there. There are lots of questions coming through. Seeing mucus in the 2-week wait before my period. Yeah, I'd say if there's kind of, it's tricky without seeing a chart and like going through the process fully. Some people, like I say, have a continuous mucus pattern. And if that we can see that over several cycles and we're doing all the things to support progesterone, then for some people that is just what their body does, but mostly you would expect it to be dry. So if you're not doing things to support progesterone, if you've got issues with progesterone, then we'd definitely look at supporting that. I think I tend to get mucus up until my period, not a huge amount, but definitely not dry. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of a pattern. I'd say that's answers the same question. Having PCOS makes it so hard to fully determine. It's obviously egg white mucus then dry. Yeah, exactly. I often feel like I have to have sex so often. Who's got time for that? I often get it after ovulation. So I would say using BVT is going to be a really helpful thing to do there. It's tricky with PCOS in terms of like if you're seeing mucus all the time, then like you say, you feel like you've got to try all the time. So there's part of me that says try all the time, you're covering all your bases, but also that can be really like, oh, I don't want to have sex again. So you may just have to go, okay, realistically, do I think I'm going to ovulate this early in my cycle and wait until a bit later and use BVT definitely to confirm ovulation. You could also use cervical position to kind of see if you're in that fertile window and what's happening with the textural changes there. And that might help you to confirm it. Okay, so is my period fertile is a question that sometimes then comes up, and it really depends. So on the heavy to medium flow days of a true period, so a true period is that it has followed ovulation in the previous cycle. Because you can have a cycle where you don't ovulate. Not super common, but it can happen. So you want to make sure you've confirmed ovulation in the last cycle. So when you're having a true period, your hormone levels are just way too low to trigger ovulation if you're having heavy or like medium days of bleeding. If you have light or very light days of your period, then you need to be on what I like to think of as a mucus watch. So you're just going to be looking for mucus all the time. Like I say, just check in when your pants are down, you're going to have a look, see what's going on. And on those light or very light days of your period, so it's more likely it's kind of spotting at the tail end of your period, start looking and seeing if there's mucus there. Because if there is mucus there, it's probably a fertile day. This is more so, I would say, with people that tend to have shorter cycles, but regardless, think of that as a fertile day. So you've got a little period checklist here. So if you're bleeding, you're going to be infertile on days of heavy to medium flow. Check the days of light or very light flow, so be on mucus watch. And fertile days are going to be days of light to very light flow when you see mucus, and that's an opportunity to try. So how do we know what's what? For the person that said, sorry about too much information, don't worry, because I'm getting into it now. So this is something that can really confuse people a lot. Is like, how do you tell the difference between all the fluids? So cervical mucus appears regardless of arousal as ovulation approaches. And we'll see that as like the peak or non-peak mucus, as I was describing. So that kind of like lotiony, sticky stuff, or the full-on like super stretchy, slippery, slip and slide stuff. If you see that and you rub it on the back of your hand, it's going to remain there. It's got higher water content and it won't evaporate. Whereas arousal fluid is made in response to arousal and disappears shortly after. And if you wipe that on your hand, it is going to evaporate far more quickly. Vaginal cell slough is what it is a byproduct of your vagina self-cleaning. So please, if you're using any kind of soaps, Femfresh or anything on your vagina, get rid. It is going to be upsetting your pH balance, and your vagina is a self-cleaning organ. If you see anything that's like in your knickers that is dry and I don't know how else to say this, but crusty, that is a byproduct of your vagina self-cleaning, and it's totally normal. I remember being mortified by that when I was a kid, or younger, maybe not a kid, but going through puberty, and I was like, what is this stuff in my knickers? And just would be like petrified of anyone seeing it in like the PE changing room or whatever, but it is totally normal and just a byproduct of that cleaning. And then semen, by comparison, is more gummy to mucus and kind of like a heavier smell there as well. So again, in the course, I teach ways of really like helping you tell the difference of different fluids, and something called the semen elimination technique, which as a lesbian is something I never thought I would teach, but here we are. So in terms of timing sex, whilst you're getting to know your cycle, I appreciate like the PCOS person said, sex every other day in an ideal world from when your period ends until you've confirmed that fertile window is closed. So use any days of peak or non-peak mucus to have sex. So whilst non-peak mucus is still fertile, consider peak mucus optimal for conception. Like I said, you're going to be making that when estrogen levels are higher, therefore you're probably a bit closer to ovulation, so your timing might just be a bit better. So make sure to use your peak days. Oh, there we go. So a note on ovulation predictor kit. So these can be helpful sometimes, but for some people, well, they cause a lot of stress. And also for people with PCOS, your LH levels can fluctuate. So then you can get false positives, which is why you might be like, what is happening if you're using them? So this is why I'm like, use the mucus, use your mucus. So this is because we have the rise and fall of various hormones and things, and then luteinizing hormone kicks in. So luteinizing hormone is what OPKs measure, so ovulation predictor kits. And then from when you get that positive, it's likely you've got about 24 to 36, sometimes a bit longer, in order to try and have sex before ovulation's happened, because you've got, yeah, that kind of window from the surge until ovulation. Which means if you're waiting for an OPK, you have a really short window to potentially try and conceive. Whereas when you're waiting for or observing your mucus, using your mucus days, it can potentially lengthen that fertile window. So if you're seeing mucus, and you're waiting for the positive on a test before you have sex, you could be missing really vital days. So ovulation predictor kits, I occasionally tell clients to use them if things aren't clear in certain circumstances. But if you're going to use them, I always say use them from when you start to see mucus. You don't necessarily need to be doing them every day from when your period ends, because then like they can get really expensive. So if you're just using a pretty standard like a clear blue or just a basic from your pharmacy ovulation strip, just start using them from when you see mucus. So BBT, making sense of temperature tracking. So what is it? It's your resting metabolic rate. So our body temperature changes throughout the menstrual cycle. It's very subtle, but when we use, so the app I use all the time is Read Your Body. And when you put it into a graph, it becomes very clear. But ultimately, we're talking about like 0.2 of a degree or something. And that's because progesterone has a heating effect on the body. And it helps us to confirm that ovulation has happened. Question, I'm using it to confirm ovulation. Never that dark. I never seem to catch a positive. Is that a concern? I wouldn't use it to confirm ovulation. So that's what I'm saying. They're ovulation predictor kits. So they're only going to tell you, I'm just going to skip back actually, because that is a really good question. Because what you're seeing is you're getting the positive strip here. That's just telling you that this hormone is present. It's not telling you that ovulation's happened. So you want to, I would use BBT as a really good way of confirming that ovulation has happened. Or there is a company called Proov, I'll just put it Proov, that do progesterone at home strip testing that's like relatively inexpensive. So sorry, I meant alongside my charting. Oh, okay. It's hard because sometimes the threshold, like people just don't meet the threshold of the strip and like might not get the kind of like the darkest thing, but ultimately like I would say really like keep an eye out for this. If you're getting some kind of positive, it is detecting LH. It could be something as simple as your urine is more diluted that morning. So I think there's like a little bit of zooming out that is sometimes helpful to do as well, of just thinking like it could just be like you're not as hydrated, so the urine is more concentrated, less concentrated. Yeah, that can definitely be a factor as well. So let me just go. Makes sense. Thank you. Fab. Great. Okay, so progesterone has this heating effect on the body. So that's what we're able to see when we're looking at charts. When the temperature goes up, it's because progesterone is present. That's why we can use it to confirm ovulation's happened, because we only make progesterone or enough progesterone for this temperature rise as a result of ovulation. So that's why it's looking back and going, yep, tick box, we have in fact ovulated. It's not a way of predicting. So how do you confirm ovulation? So the temperatures go up the day after ovulation. We want to see a sustained thermal shift, which is just another way of saying they go up and they stay up. We're looking for, so 9 consecutive temperatures where 3 temperatures are higher than the previous lower 6. That is a mouthful, but I'm going to show you some examples of it. And this little sentence here will help you so much with being able to confidently identify ovulation. Because if you're just looking for one high temperature, trust me, looking at BBT chart is just going to be an absolute minefield. This is so good. It will really, really help. Then the temperature change should line up with changes in cervical mucus and also cervical position, and we use cross-checking rules to confirm. So this is what I mean by 3 temperatures higher than the previous lower 6. So you've got these 6 lower temperatures and then 3 higher. So we've got 9 all together. And these 3 higher temperatures help us to go, okay, cool. Yep, there's been that heating effect on the body, and we're able to confirm that ovulation likely happened on this day here. We then have the baseline or cover line, which goes in just above the highest of the lower 6 temperatures. So this can take a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, it will just make it so much clearer to see where the temperature shift is. So what you can see is we've got these 6 lower temperatures. The line is going in just above the higher. So 2, 4, and 6, the higher temperatures here, and the line goes in just above. This temperature here, which would be like the seventh temperature, let's say, it doesn't matter that it's above the baseline. We're just looking for this 6. In an ideal world, your post-ovulatory temperatures will stay above the baseline. That is a really nice indicator that progesterone is happy. And that's ideally what you want to be seeing. If your period is kind of coming, then sometimes you can see the temperature drop towards the end of the cycle. But ultimately, what you're looking for is these 9 temperatures where there's 3 that are higher than the lower 6. I'm going to answer that next question in a moment, so we'll come to that. So what is optimal? So you're looking for pre-ovulatory temperatures, so pre-ovulatory being these ones here, the follicular phase temperatures, that they should be at 36.3 degrees and higher. This is with an oral thermometer, by the way, so when you're doing your temperature in your mouth. Post-ovulatory temperatures should be higher in relation to your pre-ovulatory ones. So it's harder to give an exact reference range because it's going to be relative to your chart. That being said, in an ideal world, you want one of those post-ovulatory temperatures to hit 37 degrees. Again, really great indicator that progesterone is there in really abundant amounts and having that heating effect on the body. In an ideal world, you want the luteal phase to be about 12 to 14 days in length. So in terms of taking your BBT, take it first thing in the morning before waking, before drinking, before getting out of bed. It will be the first thing you're doing if you're using an oral thermometer. In an ideal world, you want to take it within a 2-hour window. So there's a lot of the literature that says it has to be at exactly the same time every single day. It's not realistic for most people, but if you do it within a 2-hour window, you're going to get a pretty good understanding of what's happening. Have a minimum, ideally, of 5 hours sleep. Now, I know for some people that can be really tricky. I can see there is a question about going to the toilet in the middle of the night, which I will come to. But when you're getting that minimum of 5 hours sleep, you are getting that like resting metabolic rate. The same way you wouldn't take a resting heart rate after having done like 100 star jumps. You want to get it at that kind of baseline level for us in order to see what's happening with the temperature. If someone's waking up and going to the toilet a lot, what I've done with clients in the past is to, in the app that I use, Read Your Body, you can add in anything that you want to track. So I get them to track their wake up times. So just in terms of then we know if their temperatures are disturbed, and then we're trying to kind of do certain things to address like why they're waking up in the night a lot. Is that stress related? Is it going to the toilet? Are you just drinking way too much before to go to bed, and doing things to minimize that? So then over time we can see if the temperatures are impacted by that. But ultimately, if you're going to the toilet at 4 a.m., mark it in the chart so you know your temperature might be slightly disturbed in some way. But I would still just take it at 7 a.m. realistically, because I don't think waking up at 4 a.m., going to the toilet, taking a temperature, like it's just going to probably put your sleep kind of rhythm out of whack even more, is my personal opinion on it. The next step, or the final one, is like my real big point, I would say. If you've got one takeaway, in fact, yeah, one takeaway about BBT is this. For your most accurate reading, if you're using an oral thermometer like this, you want to be putting the thermometer in your mouth for 10 minutes and then take the reading. What this does is it just eliminates so many variables. And if your bedroom is cold, if you're hot, or like there's just various different things happening, it allows the thermometer to warm up to your body temperature. And what happens is, rather than having a big zigzaggy chart, it just smooths it all out quite considerably for some people, which makes your interpretation so much easier. In the Conceive course, we'll go through individuals' charts, but there's also like troubleshooting videos that you can watch, and you can see the difference with like when the 10-minute rule is put in, and just that, or the interpretation when temperatures are missing. So I'm making 2 different points here, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. But yeah, ultimately, get the thermometer, take it in, put it in your mouth, have another snooze for 10 minutes, and then take the reading. And it will just really, really help to give you the most accurate data. I'm just going to quickly read through the questions. Any recommendations for the best thermometer? Honestly, I don't think you need to go expensive. You can use something as basic as like the most basic thermometer from your pharmacy, provided it's an oral thermometer. I don't recommend like in-ear thermometers, the forehead ones, none of that. But definitely, if it's an oral thermometer, a £5, £6 one. I used that for years, absolutely fine. The thing I've then moved on to is the Temp Drop device, which is the armband that you can wear, which I really, really like and really, really rate. So they're my kind of two personal preferences. I think someone said about Oura Ring. I believe it's pretty accurate on the whole from what I have seen, but I do not like the Oura Ring app. I don't like that at all. The one thing I would say with Oura Ring, Temp Drop, any wearable devices, those optimal ranges for temperature can be slightly different. Bum, 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 bum. I think I have seen a slow increase instead of a sudden one, most recently reaching 36.9, but not immediately. Yes, have seen that before where you get a kind of like a slow rise. So I would look across your chart, see if you can apply that 3 higher compared to the 6 lower, and it might just be there's kind of like a slow incline, and that can be a progesterone related issue. Sounds like overall temperatures are hitting a good temperature, but it could just be you're having like a slower incline. Definitely seen that before. So just to confirm, so is the first day of sustained temp rise the first day of the luteal phase? So let me just go back so you can see. Oh, okay. So let me just read the question again. Just to confirm, the first day of the sustained temp rise is the first day of the luteal phase. Yes. So you won't necessarily know it is until you confirmed. When we're using fertility awareness, it really is a practice of patience because sometimes we need to wait a few days in order to confirm certain things. Confirming ovulation is definitely one of those. So you could see this temp rise on, like, imagining it's day one of the rise here. We've not got the rest of the chart yet. Could be like, okay, cool, think this is happening. Could be the start of the luteal phase. We just need some more temperatures to confirm. So in answer to your question, Abby, yes, but we do want to wait a couple of days in order to confirm that we're hitting those rules. I use it with natural cycles because the app is a bit crap. Or yeah, I don't like the Oura Ring app. Would you recommend Read Your Body app to record BBT, mucus period, etc.? Yes, yes, I would. And what was the BBT device you use? The Temp Drop. Put in the chat. So that's an armband that you wear. Okay, let me just go back to where we were. How are we doing for time? Oh gosh, okay, I've still got quite a bit to get through. If anyone needs to leave on the hour, like this will be recorded, but I'd love it if you could stay. So things that can disturb your temperature. So things can make your temperature go seemingly way higher. So if your sleep is disturbed, so that's why I say mark when you go to the toilet, because it can help you to kind of interpret what's going on there. Illness or fever, if you've got fever, obviously your temperature is going to go up. For a lot of people, alcohol will raise their temperature. How you take your temperature, so find one way and stick to it. Don't change it like mid-cycle and just being like, oh, I just fancied taking an underarm temperature today. That is going to throw your charting completely off. So find one that is working for you and stick with it. My recommendation would be, yeah, in the mouth or using some kind of wearable device. Dead batteries on your thermometer. If your temperatures suddenly feel like, what is happening? They don't feel like they're disturbed. You're like not changed anything lifestyle wise, but you're like, temperatures feel like they're all over the shop. Change the batteries on your thermometer and see if that helps. Honestly, it happens way more often than you'd think. And people are like, oh my God, like I must be really ill. And it's like, no, it's just your thermometer. If you drink before you take your temperature, that's going to alter the temperature of your mouth. Allergies and things, creating that kind of like inflammation, raising the temperature. De-stress, which I mean to have stress there, sorry, and your wake up time. So if you wake up way later one day, say your usual 2 hour window is 6:30 to 8:30, and then one day you wake up at 11 a.m. If you take your temperature, it's likely going to be much, much higher. Conversely, if you take it much earlier, so say you're getting up for a flight or something, at like 4 a.m., it's going to be much lower. So yeah, wearable devices. So the image there, that's the Temp Drop. That's actually their older model. They've got a newer model now, but ultimately it looks very similar. And some of the wearable devices are different to your resting metabolic rate. Temp Drop, I do believe, is a metabolic rate. Sorry, a true basal body temperature. But some of them take an average through the night. So just something to bear in mind. So you might not get the same diagnostic information, but you still can see the temperature shift. Excuse me. Okay. So nearly there. Tracking cervical position. So this is totally optional, but can be really, really helpful for anyone who, let's say you're ill one cycle and your BBT is all over the place. then you might want to try cervical position, or your mucus has dried up for some reason. I'll explain reasons why that can happen. Then checking your cervical position can be helpful. So the cervix is at the neck of the womb, top of the vagina. It's a really flexible muscle that cool, moves in correlation to hormonal changes throughout the cycle. And you can use these subtle changes as another way of understanding when you're moving in and out of the fertile window. So how to check? Ultimately, you're going to put your fingers inside your vagina. The best time to do this is when you're in the shower because you're already naked. Your hands are lightly clean. So it's just a really nice, easy way to do it. I'd say for a lot of people, the position that you put a tampon in might be the most comfortable to check it. And I will come back to this, back and forth to this slide. But ultimately, when you're checking your cervical position, do it for one full cycle. This is because the changes can be quite subtle. And if you're checking it on a Monday and then you don't check it again till a Sunday, you might not be able to kind of tell when you move so much in and out of these different phases. So doing it daily will really help you to feel those shifts. So when you're in the fertile parts of the cycle, it's going to feel soft. So when I say soft, give your lips a tap and you'll feel there's kind of like a nice soft fullness to them. Whereas in the infertile parts of your cycle, it's going to feel much firmer. So now give your nose a little tap and now tap between the two. And you should feel there's quite a difference between the two textures. And that's similar to what you're going to feel with the cervix. In the fertile parts of the cycle, it's going to be much higher and also open. So it does dilate slightly in the fertile window in order to allow semen in. Whereas in the infertile parts of the cycle, then it's going to feel much lower and closed. So then it dilates back down again in order to not let anything come in or out. So just to go back to this slide, you might kind of feel in relation to how much of your finger you literally have to insert of how low or high your cervix is. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, sorry, skipped ahead. So just to give you an idea of what's happening when. So during the period, the cervix will be slightly dilated in order to allow period blood out. Then it'll kind of go back to more of that closed position. You don't need to check your cervix when you're on your period, by the way. Heads up. Then on the mucus day, it's going to be that high, open, soft. And then once ovulation's happened, it closes back down again. So how do we use the cycle as a diagnostic tool? So this is where we're getting into like, why are things happening? Why is charts showing up these ways? And what can we do about it? So if you have a limited mucus cycle, so you're like, suddenly your mucus feels like it's dried up and you're like, what is happening? Or you're just not seeing it at all. So recently stopping hormonal contraception. So cervical crypts are what make the cervical mucus. And when you're on hormonal contraception, they make more infertile mucus. So you might not be seeing that kind of more peak or non-peak mucus. Recent use of fertility drugs such as Clomid or tamoxifen alter the brain's perception of estrogen and therefore can dry up mucus for a cycle or two. Current antihistamine use, if it dries up your mucus up here, it's going to dry up your mucus down there. Cervical dysplasia or abnormal cells on the cervix. So that's where we're getting these like very wet observations of mucus before wiping before you've peed. And if you've had any recent procedure on the cervix, then that can cause a limited mucus cycle as well. So when you stay until the end, you're going to get that foods that support mucus production alongside low progesterone and what's causing it. That might be why you're seeing lots of mucus in the luteal phase. And then a GP blood test request as well. So one thing that comes up a lot in fertility awareness is like low temperatures. And often, at least in the kind of like, generally when people speak, it's like low temperatures equals a thyroid issue. Now, that is sometimes the case, but there's always things to look at before that. So often, if the temperatures are low, it's literally because people aren't fueling themselves enough. If we think about what basal body temperature is, it's resting metabolic rate. Like our metabolism is what keeps us going. It's like the energy and reserves, and what do we need to keep that going? Food. So if you're not eating enough protein and fat, these are the building blocks of your hormones. You need those to literally make your hormones, especially sex hormones. Like they are the least kind of, or one of the least prioritized because we can function without them. If we've got to run from a tiger, our body's going to use the energy to make cortisol and the other hormones that will help us to run versus oh, now's a good time to make a baby. So if you're not eating enough protein and fat, your body perceives that as a stress, and then you might not be making enough of your hormones. Carbs are also very important too. Yes, this is true. Very, very true. And you need to be making sure that you're getting enough of those because ovulation is such an energy intensive process. And without fuel, carbs, your body's going to really struggle. And also, like, you're just going to feel tired. So make sure you eat carbs. So think about, do you skip breakfast? If you're skipping breakfast, people that skip breakfast tend to have a lower like calorie intake throughout the day. I don't like people to use calories as a marker, but just in terms of like, are you literally eating enough? Um, are your temperatures disturbed? Is that why they're low as well? Any nutrient deficiencies. So iron can really impact your thyroid. So thinking about what's happening there. And then, of course, thyroid dysfunction can be part of it, but we've got to make sure that we're doing all of this first. And so often within a cycle, we do this, the temperatures can go up. Maybe a couple of cycles, but I have seen it happen pretty quickly before as well. So sometimes a thyroid issue, worth getting it screened, but also there can be loads of other reasons why. Other factors that we can pick up on with fertility awareness is progesterone deficiency. So, is the luteal phase really short? Are we seeing certain types of mucus in the luteal phase? Spotting, is their temperature dropping like way before a period starts? They're all indicators that we want to be supporting progesterone. And ovulation, I mentioned that very briefly. So, it's a cycle where you don't ovulate. You'll be able to see that through your fertility awareness charting. PCOS, we can kind of track whether there's like these irregular oh, brain just absolutely stopped working there. Seeing those phases of mucus, looking at what ovulation, like when ovulation is happening, being able to then take that and say, I'm tracking my cycle. I confirm ovulation like every 60 days or something. Like, can I get a blood test? Can I get a scan? Can you like diagnose me if that's the case? HA, so that's hypothalamic amenorrhea. So that is where there has not been a period for 6 months or more. And then you can also spot early and recurrent miscarriage. No, it's not something that is particularly nice to talk about, but with this type of charting, you can see like you'll likely have tested for a pregnancy at that point anyway, because it's when you've had more than 18 high temperatures. But if you're seeing like a luteal phase of 20 days, that is definitely confirmed ovulation, and then your period comes, you would have conceived in that cycle if you had a luteal phase 18 days or longer. It's maybe covered later, but what supplements, vitamins recommended, magnesium, etc. I am not covering supplements today, and it's really hard to go into without full context of the person and what's happening. So I'm not going to talk about supplements today. And I'd really encourage anyone to go for like a food first approach over supplements. I will recommend a brilliant book called Real Food for Fertility. I'll put that in the chat. Real Food for Fertility, which does talk a bit about supplements, but really that food first approach and like absolutely brilliant. Talks a lot about fertility awareness too. Cool, fab. Other things, health of the cervix. So we can see with certain mucus observations. So when I'm teaching the very standardized method, there's certain observations that if we're seeing them consistently, it's like, okay, cool. If you've not had a smear test recently, go and get one because you could be having abnormal cells in the cervix, which might be as a result of HPV or like hopefully preventing any kind of further abnormal changes. We can also pick up on when charts start to change with life. So if your sleep is off or you go traveling or you're really stressed, you can see how that impacts your chart and then you can correct, like course correct alongside that. You can see pregnancy, which is always really, really fun, and then can also be used as birth control. As I said, we use additional buffers and rules, and it takes several cycles really to learn how to use it as birth control, but it can be done, and then you can use your body as a way of understanding when you're fertile, when you're not, and being able to decide when to have sex to avoid pregnancy. So, to recap, we have gone through Cycle 101, understanding the fundamentals of your menstrual cycle, and then looking at the cycle through the lens of fertility awareness by talking about mucus, basal body temperature, and cervical position. And then I've done like a real whistle stop tour on how to use the cycle as like a diagnostic tool. So you can kind of see how we can indicate if there's like different hormonal issues, like if estrogen is low, you might be seeing mucus. If your temperature's off, like why is that happening? And like there's loads of other stuff that we can look at as well. So it gives you lots of insight, which one will help you to get on the right path if things need help, but also to be able to advocate yourself when you go and speak to your GP or fertility consultant and be like, I'm concerned about XYZ. Can you get me the correct tests? So I'd love to see in the chat, has that cleared things up for you? Has anything become clearer? Are you feeling like, okay, like I was a bit lost before? Like, let me know how you are feeling, because I hope this has cleared up a lot of those kind of concerns that maybe you've had. Let's see. Okay, let's see some questions. Thank you so much. Really helpful. One more question. Been tracking for a few cycles consistently, though. 10 times TSH high, but docs are concerned. Think I'm eating enough. Any ideas? I would have to have more info to answer that question, but I would definitely look at the like, are you eating enough? Like, making sure the temperature's undisturbed, testing the thermometer. TSH high, had full thyroid screen. I would maybe get a fertility nutritionist to look through your results, because the reference ranges that GPs tend to use are very, very broad versus what fertility will look at. So you might want to get someone to look at them who can like really condense it and see if they're happy with them. Which lubricants to use when TTC? Proceive, I think, is a good one. Otherwise, yes, any water-based ones. Make sure they're not spermicides. Don't use coconut oil because it's antimicrobial, so that could impact your microbiome. Super helpful. Thanks. Really helpful with the visuals. Great. Enjoyable webinar. Blah, 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 blah. Brilliant. Great. So there is no more like information as such, but I would love to take some time to tell you about the course that I'm about to run. So what you can do now is watch the masterclass, and I've definitely done this so many times, where you feel really motivated to make the change and you try and implement everything at once, and then basically you burn out and you're like, okay, like I'm just not going to bother. Or you get tracking for a few months, and then you've got all this data and you're like, okay, cool, but like I need a bit of help understanding it and like what to do next. And then you feel like this kind of this way of tracking could really have a lot of information for you, but you're just feeling like, I don't really know how to go ahead without having like accountability to keep it up or the support for like understanding what's happening. So this is where I'm going to tell you about Conceive, which I'm very, very excited about. So this is the fertility awareness group that I teach. This will be my 5th time teaching the course, and it's where I really dive into all of this with you and take you as a group through learning fertility awareness and also hormone health coaching. So great evening entertainment. Love that. That's what we wanted. And then new this year, which I am so excited about, because it's on like it's been years in the making. I've wanted to have this available for so long, but it's just taken time to build it in a way that didn't completely burn me out. Is there is now a DIY self-led course which is available right now. It is there, it is ready for you to dive into, and will teach you the really standardized way of tracking. Honestly, what we did today is like scratching the surface, but it will take you through the process of learning fertility awareness and interpreting your charts and being able to make sense of them, and then getting that kind of hormonal health coaching to support you to have your best cycles yet. So if you have tried all the apps and you've heard that like, oh, like, yeah, the menstrual cycle is the 5th vital sign, but you're like, okay, but like I don't really understand and I'm still not pregnant, so can someone help? So this is where Conceive is going to be really, really helpful for you, because it's going to help you to be educated, empowered, and if you join the live group, be in community as well. Community is, I think, getting lost a lot of the time, and we really want people to feel seen. And I'm sure even just seeing in today that people asking questions, I bet there was someone that asked a question that you were like, oh, I was a bit worried about asking that, or feeling like too much information, like never ever the case. So this is where it's going to be really, really helpful for you. So it's for anyone who is trying to conceive right now. If you're coming off contraception and want to regulate a returning cycle, if you want to optimize your cycles ahead of trying to get pregnant, or if you're preparing for IVF. It's for anyone that struggles with period pain, PMS, PMDD, endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, low progesterone, spotting, like we cover a lot in there. So this is going to really help you because it's got like real digestible, valuable information. So you're going to be able to do everything that we did today super confidently, being able to spot ovulation, being able to know when you're fertile, being able to read your charts and really understand them, and being able to see when life is lifing, because it will do, what happens to your menstrual cycle. I know when I over exercise, I get like my period just lasts for ages and I get spotting ovulation, whereas when I'm not, I don't get that. So, or if I'm not eating enough, like I know all these things about my cycle through fertility awareness. I know if I'm not looking after my blood sugar, my progesterone goes all over the place, and then my PMS comes back and my OCD goes wild. It's not very fun, and I know this now through tracking. So that's where the hormone health coaching comes in as well. So there are loads of videos on lots of different topics that will really help you to implement certain protocols, lifestyle things that will support your hormonal health. And then understand why you're not getting pregnant yet. Is it something as simple as the timing? Your timing's off and you didn't realize? Or is there a hormonal underlying issue, and being able to detect that through your charting? And it's going to really help you to stop feeling so like, what is happening? Like, why is my body not doing what it's supposed to do? And start to feel like you're really in charge, because your body is not the problem. You just need the right tools to understand what is happening with your body, and then being able to advocate for yourself and being able to really explain, if you need further help, what is going on so you can get the right help and get it quickly. So in terms of the live group, how we create an environment for your reproductive health to flourish is really like simplifying things. So yes, there's a lot of information at the beginning, but once you've got it down, it's going to really help you to understand what is happening. So the world of fertility, I know, can be like, there is too much information. It's changing all the time, what people are saying. But when you've got someone like really explaining what is happening and what's happening to you through your charting, it really helps you to, one, optimize your chances of pregnancy, but also just help you feel less alone in it and make sense of what is happening with you, like week by week, cycle by cycle. And when we use that data collected, it's going to help us to identify the areas that you need support for your individual body and your individual fertile window. And then, of course, the community part of it, being in a group. So the Lowdown, which is a contraception reviewing online platform, they also do some work around trying to conceive. And I think this was last year, it might have been the year before. They did a study where 39% of the participants said they'd not told anyone that they were trying to conceive. So it can be really lonely. And I imagine there's people in here that have felt lonely at times through this. Like, in fact, if you are someone that like hasn't told anyone, like drop it in the chat, because I bet it will help people be like, okay, it's not just us. And through regular calls, we help to create this environment of understanding, a sense of belonging, and like getting rid of the shame around fertility, periods, all of that. Like I say, like we really go into mucus and things. I've definitely had people sending pictures of their mucus in a group chat. Like I bet people didn't think they were going to be comfortable with that. And that is definitely the point that we get to, because you understand it's really valuable information. It helps everyone to feel more comfortable. Well, hopefully it helps everyone to feel more comfortable. But I really want people to like not feel alone in this, because it can be really tough. So in terms of how do we do it? So, oh, didn't mean to skip ahead. Sorry, the chat is just ticking up for me. Learn fertility awareness. So like what we did today, the first, if it's in the live group or you're doing the DIY one, the first bulk of the course, whatever way, is learning how to use fertility awareness. So this is really getting into the nitty gritty of the cycle tracking that we did today, and using numbers, letters, colors to be able to put into a clear bracket what type of mucus you're seeing, what's happening with your temperature. And that really helps you to be able to then look back at your chart for the month and review it and go, cool, I know what's happening. What changes do I need to make, want to make? Am I good? Like, what's happening? So through that, you're learning fertility awareness, and then we establish a baseline. So this is basically your first menstrual cycle chart where we can see what's happening. It's used as a learning tool as well, of course, to be like, okay, making sure we're charting in the correct way, checking cervical mucus observations, and being able to spot, okay, where do you need some support? So then we lay the foundations for a really strong and healthy cycle. So everyone starts with kind of like blood sugar balancing for a lot of people, and then other factors to kind of, yeah, get that foundation like solid. And then the rest is kind of a back and forth between these two of looking at the data we've collected, using that to inform health decisions, and then fine tuning of implementing sustainable changes based on what your chart is telling you. So this is where it like really becomes very individualized, because it depends what your chart says of what steps we take next. So this was someone who was in not the last round, but the round before of Conceive, AD, who was 43. So I found this course invaluable. Through the Conceive course, I've learned to listen and watch for the signs of my own body is telling me without the need for external predictor tools. Yes. Katie has relayed a vast amount of critical information with great presentations, insights, research, sensitivity, and warmth. The icing on the cake was the individual attention received, having a small group that supports that as well. The course changed my life in so many ways, and I'm really grateful. And in the last week of the course, I conceived. So for that, of course, I'm eternally grateful. And her baby is now 3 months old, which is really, really lovely. Sent me a video the other day, and it's just, yeah, really, really wonderful when these things come together. So if you've ever felt really frustrated, like you're not seeing the results that you want to, just know that like it takes like 3 to 6 months to see changes in your fertility and menstrual cycle. And it can be really easy to give up like pretty quickly if you're not seeing that. Like I know I've had times in the past where I'm like, oh, I would really like this to happen more quickly. But that's where we have with the live group support over 13 weeks, because you want to have that time together for one, accountability, support. The beginning of groups is always really exciting. And then we want to make sure that we're supporting you through the middle. So 13 weeks, about 3 months of support throughout the group's program. Come on, Canva. So yeah, in Conceive, you get the 13-week experience in the live group. So then Helena, halfway through the fertility awareness course with Katie, and I couldn't be happier. I'm learning so much, and every session, she makes it very easy to feel comfortable with her. I'm really happy about that, because like I say, mucus pictures helps people to learn. She's always available outside of session hours to answer questions, and have a fun personality, which makes me enjoy the sessions even more. Go and do the fertility awareness course with Katie and take control of your periods and fertility. So we have the live calls for chart reviews. So this is really to like come together and get the support and learn from one another as well. So you can imagine that like all the information today will really get you started, but then you're presented with something like this and you're like, okay, help please. So we come together totally judgment free. There's no such thing as a perfect chart, and get that support of like looking at your charts, understanding what's happening for you, and being in that group of people that like really, really get it, and like bolstering each other along the way as well. So the first 4 calls are weekly to like really get that learning solid, and then we spread them out over more time. So you've got 9 calls in total. So really take people's feedback seriously. So someone's saying it'd be nice if we had more time in the calls. So like not hurry with the information. Sometimes it was spoken speedy. I know I probably spoke speedily tonight, sorry. And then it would be great if we had guest professionals from other fields to take 1 or 2 of the sessions supporting the content, such as a nutritionist. So with that in mind, there is the on-demand learning portal. So this is where all of the videos live inside the Conceive portal. There's over 30 classes now. So the first chunk of them are fertility awareness classes. And then we also have, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, so you can see here, there's all the different classes here. I think there's actually more now since I recorded this the other day, because I've only finished the course in the last few days. And then the rest of the course is kind of like this hormonal health coaching side of things. So in the calls, we will discuss these different things, but if you're doing the DIY version, everything you need is inside the portal. And then if you join Conceive Live this year, based on the feedback, we have two experts. So one of the calls will be taken by Natasha Evans, who will be sharing how chemicals and endocrine disruptors can impact fertility and what you can do to support yourself there. So she is a brilliant fertility nutritionist. And then you have an online yoga pass. So with Laura. So she is giving 4 classes to join her yin yoga, which is so wonderful for fertility and getting you to slow down because so often it's a stressful experience and we want to make sure that you're taking time to look after yourself as well. So that is all included in the price when you join the live group. So this was another experience. So throughout the program, Katie provided invaluable insights on tracking my cycle, maintaining hormonal balance, and optimizing my chance for conception. Her guidance extends beyond the basics, encompassing personalized advice on supplements, dietary choices that would enhance fertility journey. What could have been an overwhelming experience turned into an enlightening and manageable process under Katie's expert tutelage. So when you join Conceive for the live group, you get the 13 weeks of support, 9 live calls, and all of the on-demand learning. So anyone that joins the live group gets everything inside the DIY version. Plus, when you join the live group, you do get to join the Conceive Circle, which is our messaging platform. It's in Signal, so just like another kind of WhatsApp thing, where you can ask all your questions. So one, it's nice to get support from other women, but also kind of like today, people ask questions. It's probably a question you're thinking about as well. So you can get support in between calls as well, which is always really valuable. So you're not left hanging of like, oh, what's happening? And then you also get one-to-one messaging with me as well. So I appreciate sometimes you're like, I don't really want to, like maybe it's more private matter or you're just not comfortable sending mucus stuff in a group, which is totally fair. You can message me privately as well. So you've got me in your back pocket of mucus questions, BBT questions, general kind of, oh, you said this in this video. How does that apply to me? Like all those kinds of things. So you get the 13 weeks, 9 live calls, on-demand learning, and the group messaging and private messaging as well. So this is what some other people said when we asked them, what would you say to someone thinking about joining Conceive? So if you feel underinformed or overwhelmed with all the info out there, you're not alone. Thankfully, this course exists, expect clarity in mind, confidence in body. It's time to put hearts on the chart. If you know, you know. Some hearts on the charts when you're marking sex. I ask people to do that. I'm not a pervert. It helps us to understand that you're timing it properly. The knowledge gained can empower you to make informed decisions about your reproductive health. Katie is the best. And do it right now, not ask yourself if it's worth it. It is. Very firm review there. So Conceive could save you thousands of pounds. So I appreciate some people for IVF will be part of their journey, but for some people, they definitely feel like they get forced into it way too early. And the going rate of a single round of IVF is £3,000 to £4,000. I am in a same-sex couple and we don't know if we want to have kids, but I remember the first time I looked up how much IVF was because I was like, oh, well, that's what we'll do if we want to have a child. And I just cried because I was like, oh my God, it's so expensive. So this is where like inside Conceive, you're going to get like evidence-based protocols, resources, referrals that will help you to improve your chances of pregnancy naturally or via IVF. If you're looking for help kind of like finding clinics and things as well, it's certainly something that I can help with. So if you feel like okay, this all sounds great, but I don't really have the time, this will save you time. You don't need to go looking for research. You don't need to be like, what books do I need to read? Like, what does this mean about my cycle? But like this person said that if you just keep it all in one place, it's gonna save you so much hours of research. Like I say, this course has been years in the making because it's compiling everything I know. And that's why I'm like giddy that it's live because I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it's live because yeah, it's just taken time to get it all together. And then you're not doing it alone and you've got someone to ask your questions to as well. You don't need to be like, okay, well, like I think this, but I'm not sure. Like you can just ask me stuff. So it's going to save you so much time. And also with the live calls, great if you can join them all, but they will be recorded because sometimes you've just got something in the diary that's been there for ages. You can't move it. totally fine. And or work gets in the way. If you can join the live calls, obviously great, because you're going to get more of that one-to-one feedback. And the groups are small. I don't know if I've said that. There's a maximum of 6 people in each group. So just so you can get that one-to-one time as well. So, and I said, new this year, the DIY version is going to be available now. So what's the difference between doing it yourself and joining the group? So as I said, in Conceive Live, you get the full online curriculum. You're going to get the lifetime access to the course, and I'm going to be adding stuff to it as time goes on as well. So in by the end of June, there will be all the birth control stuff in there as well. And as other bits of information come up and like research changes, I will be adding to things as well. In Conceive Live, you're going to get the 9 calls with me, get the one-to-one feedback. As I said, small group, maximum 6 people. I don't like to do them big, like sure I could, but I don't think that's particularly valuable for anyone. You're going to get all the bonuses and resources, downloads, messaging support, that accountability and structure. So this is really good for people that want guidance, feedback, to feel held through the process and want that kind of accountability. Whereas in the DIY version, you're still going to get the full curriculum. So everything that's on the online portal, you're going to get lifetime access to it, 100% self-paced. Everything will be there. If you like went and bought it tonight, it's there. You can just go through it in your own time. There will be the option to upgrade to join the live group if there is space for this current round, but also going forward, we'll just deduct the price of your DIY version from the group. But you don't get the live coaching calls, the one-to-one support, the group support, but it's great for those who need some more flexibility. And if you're like, I'm good with this stuff, like I can take it on and I'm going to go off and do that on my own in my own time, then the DIY version could be really great for you too. So another experience, so been coached by Katie in fertility awareness, which she shared her knowledge in a clear and understandable way. I would certainly recommend fertility awareness for anyone who wanting to understand their cycle and learn tips and tricks on how to optimize their desired outcomes. So when you join the live group, you're going to get the 13-week experience. So getting my support for that full amount of time. You get the 9 live calls, all the on-demand resources and learning, private messaging, and the Conceive Circle, which is like unlimited as well. That's not like it's not you can only contact me once a week. Like you can message me throughout the week as much as you want. Resources and all the referrals, plus the guest experts and the class passes and all the class recordings. So you can see how valuable all of that would be. And if all it did was to help you feel in control of your cycle and for you to feel really empowered and like trust that you know your body and trust that you can advocate for yourself if you need to do that. If it could show you how you can create lasting change to support your fertility and like your vitality, how you feel on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm not trying to conceive, but this whole process changed how I feel on like a daily basis. I have more energy, I sleep better, my mood is so much more stable. And if that goes off track, I know why now. And if it gives you a real chance of conceiving a happy, healthy baby, wouldn't that be bloody great? So just some more client experiences, people just feeling like really confident that they understand their cycles, that they can see where things are going, feeling more positive, feeling like it's a really safe space, like it's a really positive experience for people that come into the group. So, of course, I'm not going to be a crazy lady and charge you what the total value of it would be. So, oh, there's another slide there again. So the Conceive live group for the next 48 hours, there is a discount. So if you pay in full, it's $750. If not, you want to split it into payments, then 5 monthly payments of $154. I couldn't read that then for a second. And then the full price, which will go up in the next 48 hours. So as of midnight on Friday, yes, not quite 48 hours, a bit more than that. Then the price will go up to $899 in full, and then still the payments available as well. Plus, if you pay on the early bird, you're going to get a one-to-one chart review included as an extra. And for those of you that want to do the DIY, also a huge discount, so 50% discount on the DIY for the next 48 hours. And lost my train of thought. So yeah, 50% off for the next 48 hours. You can access that immediately. And then it goes up in price to 375. Also payment plans available for both. So yeah, more people just being like seeing the differences in their cycle, being able to understand how it's helping them, understanding what your body's capable of, and yeah, just feeling way more in control, way more empowered, and like getting pregnant as well. We've had, oh, I can't think off the top of my head. 12 people have gone through conceive so far. Is that right? Yeah. And there's like 4 babies now, which is, yeah, amazing. Really, really lovely to see it all happening. So this is your invite to come and join. I'm about to drop a whole load of links into the chat right now. And if anyone has any questions, also all of you who have stayed, thank you so much. I'm about to send you all of these freebies as well. Yeah, if you have any questions about anything we talked about Conceive, you can ask me now, but also I'm going to be doing discovery calls for the next few days. If you want to hop on one of those just to chat it all through, would love to talk to you. So let me go and get all the links for you. Thank you so much, Katie. Appreciate the time to talk through this. Yay, great, lovely. An evening well spent. Love to see that. Let me get you your links. So you have, there's a group application form. The application is just to make sure that like it makes sense for you to join, and that maybe like if you'd be better off spending your money elsewhere, I will tell you that. So the application is just like very, very basic. You can buy the DIY with the discount right now. Then there's all the info about Conceive as well. And then of course you've got all your freebies. So the progesterone document, blood tests, and supporting cervical mucus. So let me just check everyone. Great. People just saying thank you. Lovely. So if anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll stay here for a minute longer because I appreciate it might take you a second to type things. But otherwise, that is everything tonight. Thank you so much for staying all the way to the end. I know we went through so much. And yeah, I would really love for people to join Conceive or buy the DIY version. That would be so great. And I just want to help you like start your family at the end of the day. So great. Oh, thank you, everyone. Fab. And if anyone, yeah, email me, message me, all good. Fab. Cool. I'm going to love you and leave you all. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, I'll see you soon.